Okay, that's fine. So number one, before I say anything, I want to recognize some of the organizations that have really made this possible. As I said, Enable cannot do this alone. So we definitely reached out to some of our partners, and this has been a collaborative effort. Whatever you see today has been very, very well thought out. And I have to say, I still remember, this conversation started with Pascal and Bernard somewhere in California. And part of it was, there are so many challenges in making sure that we have affordable assistive tech in Africa, but also something sustainable, something also of good quality. So we were having these conversations, and part of it we realized everyone is talking in different directions. And there's no one clear direction which we need to go. In terms of solutions, there are so many solutions, but unless we come together and map out the process for ensuring that we can get assistive technology to the users in Africa, then we'll be speaking different languages. And you'll find that one organization is succeeding, another one is failing. So what's exciting is we have ATscale that focuses on government and other places. We have ShonaQuip that's locally, it's a local organization in South Africa and has done some fantastic job. And I won't talk about her because she needs to share her own story. We have Bernard and others here who have so many ideas. And I think that's a purpose for Inclusive Africa Conference. Bring people together, let's debate and debate until we come up with some solutions that work for Africans. And there's no better place for this conversation to take place than in Africa itself. So I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us here today. And I will get us started first by thanking ATscale. You guys are phenomenal. GDI, thank you so much. AT4D, sorry, almost missed you. Zero Project, thank you, thank you, thank you. I think it's been a collaborative effort. And I think the differences in our thought processes and how we think this should be done is really what makes this a rich conversation. And what I'm saying is, it doesn't mean that Shona and Enable or ATscale will agree. But if we continue with these discussions, we will be able to come up with a solution. So this is the beginning of many other, we're going to create a working group that will be meeting to figure out what we need to do. So I ask you guys to join us after the conference. We will be sending some information out. But let's get started. So sustaining disability innovation, we are talking about affordability, market access, and when I think about innovators, all these creative guys who are here in Kenya and the rest of Africa, developing amazing innovations, but they have no way to get the products out, I think it's important we help them figure out the process. And then investments in assistive technology. This is a very new space. We barely have any investments. And I think it would be great if we got the right investments, then we'd be able to get the technology or any assistive technology right in the hands of Africans. So that's where we're starting from. What is assistive technology? This is a Pascal statement. Glasses, hearing aids, wheelchairs, and all that stuff. I focus mainly on tech. So definitely, most of you here understand what assistive technology is. And it's definitely a challenge for different groups of people. And I do know that we have a few people who work with children and making sure they get the right assistive technology from when they are young because of all the complications that come in with getting the wrong assistive technology. But there's also the adults and the older people. So we will be covering a full spectrum from these discussions. I'll skip some slides and make this really easy. Really, the purpose for this session is really to convene innovators, assistive tech users, policymakers, funders, disability advocates, and anybody who's interested in that space who we've left out to be able to come in and contribute and understand what needs to be done. So, the objectives will identify the key challenges in the assistive technology space and the opportunities. We'll develop a shared understanding of critical ingredients, so we'll all come up with really some good formats of really what needs to happen. We will explore innovation financing and mechanisms. because as we know, most of the financing that we have today does not work for African innovators. So how can we make sure that we develop mechanisms that also work for them? We will also target market access, as I mentioned earlier, and we'll also foster collaboration, because this is a collaborative effort and it's long term. It can't be short term. And then, of course, most importantly, we're going to establish a working group. And we hope that as we work together throughout the year, by the time we come for the next Inclusive Africa conference, we will have more meaningful, impactful information to share with everyone on the way forward. So I'll stop there. There are a few slides. Not yet. I think the only thing I'm going to say is we're going to have 3 panels back to back. The first one is navigating the market entry points and challenges. And then we'll have Sarah. I don't know if she made it here. We're going to have Shona, Coleman, and Pascal on that session. Then after the second session, we'll be financing assistive technology innovation models. We're going to have Namita, Ezra, Maharaz, and Klaus. And then last but not least will be policy and system strengthening. We're going to have Charles, Juma, Pascal, and Ben. And then, of course, for every session, we'll be opening to questions. And Cariden and Bernard will actually be your MCs for today. So, all right, Bernard, over to you. Thank you, everyone.
Wow, good afternoon. I can see more chairs coming into the room. So it means that this room is going to be packed. So good afternoon, everybody. So welcome. The last time I did something like this, I think it was 25 people max. So I'm not sure how this is going to work for a roundtable. But we're going to make it interesting. So if you could settle down, if you're standing, once you get your chair, we'll get started. But as you do that, I think we need to break some ice. I can't just start this. It feels very stiff in here. People are just from lunch, you know, so I don't know what the energy is like in the room. So let's test that a little bit. So I usually tell a joke. I don't have a joke today. So we're going to test something different. So there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to what is assistive tech and what is not, what is innovation and what is not. And now we're talking about disability innovation in this forum, right? Yeah, so so we need to demystify that a little bit. And I know there's a lot of experts in the room. So if you want to be famous and you're in the audience and not on the almost round table, I'm going to ask a few questions, and if you are brave enough, just raise your hand and just tell us what the answer is. And the first one, I mean, this one, everybody should know. What is disability? And it's for people in the seated at the back. What is disability? Just anybody, just stand up or like raise your hand, or just, if we have a right, please take it at the back. We need to do this quickly. What is disability? We have a hand there. Say your name also. We want to make you famous. This is a global audience.
I'm Stephanie Ebude from Cameroon. Disability is a physical or mental impairment that limits an individual from fully participating in the society.
Okay, all right. We have experts in the room, by the way, so they're already grading your answers. What is innovation? Anyone from the innovation space or wants to take a shot at it? This is probably the most controversial one because everyone thinks they're innovative. So what is innovation? Anyone? Hey, this is quick trivia. Yeah, there's a hand up. We need to move. We need to invite our panelists.
Hello. First, innovation for me is to create outside of the box to solve a societal or personal problem that hinders someone from doing something.
Could you take that again real quick?
Okay, so innovation is to think out of the box,
Think of the box.
to to find a quick solution or a long-term solution based on a real problem found.
Fantastic. Okay, so we already got two definitions. Putting those two words together. Disability innovation, right? So to help us get started on this conversation, I'm going to invite my panelists or my roundtable mates on the front row. Pascal, I think you're in there. You can start heading there. Coleman, welcome on stage. Shona from Shona Quip and Sarah from Devtronics, please come up. As they come up, we're going to do something because the energy here is still not very inspiring. So today is actually the International Day for Assistive Technology. I don't know how many of you knew this. So we're going to say Happy International Day for AT, but we're going to make you do an activity. For those who can stand, be upstanding. And for those with cameras, I think there's a few cameras in the room. So we're going to say Happy International Day for AT, but we need to do something that makes you guys look cool on photos. So take out your phones, if you have a phone, and then put on your torch, if it has one. Then you're going to raise it up. And then on the count of 3, we're going to say, Happy International AT Day. Are all the torches up? We go? Okay. World Day. Okay, there's a difference. World Day of Assistive Technology. So 1, 2, 3. Happy of Assistive Technology. Okay, all right. All right. Now we're getting there. The energy is going up. Okay. So I'll be roaming around. I'll sit on tables as well. So pardon me, but we need to get this conversation off the road. So this first panel is, and guys, remember we're talking about sustaining. So there's been a lot happening in Africa about disability innovation, specifically about assistive tech. But is it sustainable, guys? Can we be real here? We are all trying to do all these different things from these different perspectives, but do we have a sustainable disability innovation approach in Africa? And to help us understand this, we're going to get started on our topic on access to markets, because this is one of the things that without it, there is nothing like disability innovation or sustainability. If all the innovators that have come for this conference that are looking to build a startup don't get their products to market, then we can't sustain us. So we're going to have our panelists do quick intros of themselves and also give us a perspective of this challenge about access to market, because I know there's a lot to unpack there. But just give us your, what I call, in your opinion, what's the elephant in the room for this challenge, your one big problem, the back of your mind. So I think we're going to start with Pascal, and we're going to come down this way in that order. So Pascal, introduce yourself, short intro, and then give us an elephant.
Okay. Thank you, Bernard. You're always good at surprising us in a good way. So I'm Pascal, and I head up ATscale, the global partnership for assistive technology. So I think, I don't know if it's the big elephant, but it is a barrier, is, I think, a perceived difficulty, which is not just perceived, I think it is a real difficulty, for companies who want to, grow in certain markets in Africa, to know how to navigate that and how to enter a particular country market. And I think that is one of the many barriers, and I'm happy to say more about that. But if you just want the headline, that's one of them.
Fantastic. Coleman. And I hope you're taking notes. I hope our note takers are taking notes. All right, Coleman, it's been a pleasure meeting you for the first time.
Thank you.
And you're running Chiira in Tanzania.
Yes.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself and, yeah, from this perspective, what's your elephant in the room when it comes to access to markets?
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Are you here in the room? Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
There we go. My name is Coleman Detembea. I come from Tanzania. I'm one of the co-founders of Chiira Assistive Tech. Chiira Assistive Tech started 7 years ago. Fun fact, actually me and my two co-founders met for the first time on 4th of June, 2018.
4th of June, guys, today.
So you can imagine my joy when I found out last year that 4th of June is going to be Assistive Tech Day, because it's kind of our anniversary. It's how the birth of Chiira came along. So we started as a project at a 20 Innovation Hub, an innovation hub in Arusha, where we started designing a wheelchair for kids with cerebral palsy. But since then, we have advanced and moved. We started manufacturing in 2021, and since then we have advanced to be manufacturers of appropriate assistive devices, that is wheelchair therapy equipment, rehabilitation equipment, etc., but also to provide services around accessibility, advising and adaptations for houses, adapting vans for wheelchair accessibility, building wheelchair swings, and even setting up sensory rooms for conferences to promote inclusion for people with sensory neurodivergence. But also we do the service provision part. We don't just manufacture the devices, we do the full service provision from assessment, and then the fitting, the user training, and the follow-up. And we also do advocacy around raising awareness around appropriate assistive tech. So we are based in Arusha, where we have our factory, and we have a branch, the first assistive tech shop in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam. And we have distributed since 2021 over 1,500 devices. Now, straight to the question, the elephant in the room. If it's not me because of my body size, the elephant in the room would be availability of appropriate devices. We understand that the ecosystem of assistive technology is faced with many challenges. Financing is a big issue, awareness, stigma, and all that. But when it comes to devices, availability first more than anything else. We depend largely in imported. And then when it comes to availability, the hardness of local manufacturers to solve that availability issue because of the existing models that surround disability.
Okay, so we're going to unpack that a little bit later. So availability. Shona, all the way from South Africa, 30 years in the game. So you must know many elephants in this sector. So tell us a little bit about yourself and Shona, as well as, this one thing you think is probably the biggest barrier in this space.
Yeah, so just a little bit of background. I started in this field after the birth of one of my daughters with severe cerebral palsy due to a birth injury. I was told to put her in a home and have another child, and it turned me into an angry parent and a disability activist. But the first step for me was, how do I solve my daughter's challenges and the barriers she experiences to being included in my family, let alone society? And so I started building equipment for her and discovered that at that time in South Africa, 42 years ago, there were no wheelchairs available except the folding hospital transporters. And South Africa was under political sanctions, and we were unable to import anything. So the only solution was to start building something for her out of my garage. That has turned out to be a really exciting journey of having now built equipment and trained and upskilled over 260,000 people in the last 30 years, introduced together with partners and therapists in the field, policy in South Africa to support disability rights, inclusive education, and a wheelchair tender, which is a cross-cutting transversal tender which serves health, education, social development, and transport. So when I look at the challenges we experienced 40 years ago, there were no wheelchairs, there was nothing for children, there was nothing for adults. There was no such thing as a market for wheelchairs. Didn't exist. So for me, the big challenge we sit with is we know it's possible to start from nothing and develop a wheelchair market together with services, but as long as that market is constantly undermined by humanitarian and donated products that come in and close down local markets, it's going to remain impossible to build local markets and ensure that they are sustainable. So, my big elephant is how do we bring the humanitarian approach and the disability charity and pity approach together into a space where we have to build economic value and sustainability around disability services and product availability. Thanks.
Fantastic. Okay. It's a deep one. Now we come to Sarah, all the way from Botswana, right? Deftronics. So you're in a very interesting space, hearing aids, and you're also in the manufacturing space. And as far as I understand, your company is only present in Botswana. And I think I could say the same to the 3 other entrepreneurs in terms of your physical market presence. All of you are still in your countries of origin, no? Shona is not, physically, okay, apart from Shona. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then the one thing that you think we need to come out of this room with answers about access to markets, because I am inspired by what you guys have done. Tendekai has been part of our program, and I'm still waiting for Deftronics to come to Kenya.
Sarah, you are right. I am the founder of Deftronics. And I do hope that many people know Tendekai. We work with the Tendekai. I hope that you have seen him representing. So I founded Deftronics. And I've been crisscrossing several countries many times just to present standing. Okay. So now, the challenge that I can say is a big challenge to access to market. You know, accessibility is very, very expensive. For instance, as Deftronics, we see that most hearing aids that people use, like I'd said, the battery goes down. So with this technology, we want to ensure that a client's access, which has never been inclusive, because many deaf people, for instance, have been suffering with this issue of hearing aids. So it's quite a big challenge. So if my company now is sourcing for funds so that we can provide all of them access so that they can benefit without facing barriers, and also for education technology for children and other various persons. So it is a big challenge for me. You know, the community does not have a technology that caters for them. And I'm sure that it's not only in Africa that we have these problems. We have a lot of them in other countries, but so now access to market has not been there. So now I'm sourcing for funds so that we can go to other countries and we can fix the problem that we have there. And then later on, we will disseminate the hearing aids to the deaf community so that they can access.
So if I am hearing you right, you're saying we need funding. We need funding to unlock this access to market for companies like yourselves and for the users to actually participate in that market. Is that correct?
Oh, yes.
All right. All right, guys. You've heard it from the experts. So now we're going to turn it to we the people. So we the people are going to engage with our experts. And I want you to put on your thinking hat on, because one of the things I don't want us to dwell so much in this session is problems. This is a gathering, is a convening of probably the best minds in the world to address this very problem. And so we have to engage with that and remove the barriers of access to market. So what I want us to do is, I want you to challenge these experts, right? They are entrepreneurs. We have ATscale, which is a global partnership hosted by the United Nations. These are the people with the will, the power, and the commitment to make a difference. But what's really gonna solve this problem? I mean, we've heard about perceived difficulty of entry into new markets. We've heard about undermining the efforts of local manufacturers coming from humanitarian interventions. We've heard about funding. So let us start engaging in these challenges and see, are they really problems that don't have solutions, or we're gonna come out of this room with real solutions? And we're gonna do this in an interesting way. So let's start with the first problem of perceived difficulty. So is this myth or fact that getting African AT products into new markets is difficult? And Pascal thinks it's a percepted difficulty. Maybe he wants to clarify. Do you want to clarify?
Yeah, so just clarify, my point was not about African products getting into other markets. It was about companies wanting to do business in Africa.
In Africa, so from outside.
Struggling to figure out how to enter the market.
Okay.
Or local companies in Africa wanting to
Go
expand
out.
to other countries and having to navigate a complex regulatory environment and all the other barriers that exist, taxes and tariffs and quality issues and so on and so forth.
So I hope you've clarified that. So we're going to do this in something I like to call a dynamic panel. So we want to come out here with solutions, right? So in our audience, and also this round table, if you're still on the table, you're part of the audience for now. Coming in and out of new markets. So this is very important for sustainability, especially if you're a startup, because no investors will invest in your company if you're not showing that your company can scale, for example, or enter into new markets. So let's unpack that a little bit. So is the difficulty the fact that we have fragmented markets across Africa, and it's not really an AT problem per se, it cuts across. It doesn't matter. In my opinion, this could be a problem of market fragmentation combined with other challenges that are nuanced to assistive tech. But do we have anyone in the room that wants to contribute into how we ought to start thinking about a solution to that? So Danny, please come up. Please come up. So when you come and sit on this chair right next here, I wish it was next to the panelists, but we want this, the first chair, or I hope you're not going to block the interpreter. Yeah, maybe you can see there. Yeah. So, how do we solve this?
Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Gatura, co-founder of ACE Mobility, where we provide transport to people with reduced mobilities. So that is people with disabilities, the elderly, the sick, school-going children, and pregnant women. So we do this using adapted vehicles. And allow me just to give a history of where I'm coming from, and then I'll dive into the question. So we do this using adapted vehicles. So right now, the cost of vehicles themselves is quite expensive. But when we come in then and add in a conversion factor, that makes it more expensive. But then after we've now have an adapted vehicle, looking at how vehicles are financed in the country right now, you're supposed to do monthly payments. But with the product that we're actually having right now is we are unable to do continuous monthly payments because we do not have continuous monthly revenue. The only available way of funding, for example, my business model is straight on asset financing. But then asset finance needs continuous monthly payments. So we are yet to hear, for example, which the solution would be. Are there people, for example, maybe from ATscale, who are willing to come in and say, with all the 80 products, can we then do a revenue-based financing? We understand that debt should be repaid, but we are unable to commit to regular and monthly payments. However, we are open to doing revenue-based financing, whereby every time I make a sale, I am able to then give you a certain percent to repay you back your loan. So revenue-based financing is a model that could be looked into, and I am very sure that the startups then are now able to pay off their loans.
You gave us a financing solution to a market entry problem. If I'm not wrong, right? So do you want to tell us how that relates to market entry? Yeah, very briefly, and then we're going to get someone to respond to that, then we move on.
Okay, so this is also a marketing problem, because when you're talking about transport, you need a number of vehicles to join the fleet. And you need to prove that you're able to do this. So the only way to enter market is to prove that you can do it. However, you need that particular product in itself, even though it's a prototype. You need a working prototype to show that it actually works. And so that's how this now becomes a marketing problem, whereby we still need even a little financing to buy the first few, or even develop the first few products that then come to market, and we are able now to show that it works, so that then we now talk about scaling. But if the idea then ends at innovation, then that's it.
Okay, I think this move was dangerous. This guy doesn't want to get rid of the mic, but he's proposing revenue-based financing. So I finance you based on their revenue potential. Okay, I don't know whether that's a solution. You guys think about it. And we have, I think, 5 minutes, I'm told. So we're going to move to the next problem, which was availability. Availability of AT. What are the solutions for this? I see ATscale is doing a lot of awareness. I've played your videos in other conferences. So my question is this purely an awareness problem? That's why we don't have availability? Or there's another root cause of this availability? And what is the solution? And because I'm now scared of this move, and we don't have time. What are the solutions to this? Availability. Think of it, if it was another market, what drives availability? That's what we are asking. And how do we fix this for assistive tech? Any takers? You got like 1 minute, please. Don't give a... Yeah, we have a hand in the audience. Way at the back. We have 2 minutes. Okay. So you're going to have 30 seconds of fame to give us a solution. And our rapporteur are actually noting this down.
Thank you, Chiira.
I don't think that's the hand I saw. I think the gentleman in the black. Yes, that hand. Sorry about that. Yes, there you go.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Malumba Nawa. I am a professional speaker, CEO of the Blind Spot. So, the problem isn't availability. The problem is packaging. It doesn't matter how good a gift is. If it's not packaged in an attractive way, there won't be a demand for it. So, solution is trying to repackage how we present assistive technology, whether it's reframing the way it's modeled, the way it's presented to potential investors. That could be a solution.
Okay.
So try changing the packaging.
Packaging of assistive technologies. Okay. I'm not sure whether my panelists are taking notes, but we've got two very interesting solutions to this problem. I'm still trying to unpack them. Okay, we're going to move on to the next elephant in the room, and it came from Shona. And it was about the tension between local entrepreneurs, local manufacturers versus the good heart sector. And that's the charity sector, but that's doing it for a very good reason, for humanitarian reasons. How can we resolve this tension? Because it is true we have a humanitarian problem for assistive technology, but at the same time, we have a sustainability problem. And what are the trends showing us? That one day, your aid can be pulled away, and you go figure your life out, right? So, how do we resolve this tension? Any takers? Lady in the blue blazer. Tell us your name and what you think is the solution to this.
Thank you very much. I'm Rachel Wantale. So I think there is a gap and there is need to integrate assistive devices within the systems, like the government systems. Like I'll give an example. I looked at her, what's her name?
Shona.
I looked at Shona. I looked at her device. She has the one which uses for persons with disability. It can be integrated into health centers. And as you say, the government is trying to onboard it within the system. So the way things can be sustainable is understanding that some of our solutions don't only target persons with disability, like dyslexia. If we approach the teaching approach, like with education systems, and assume that every child had dyslexia, it will make the teaching outcomes better, or any assistive technologies regarding teaching. Like we just have to approach everything that there is a possibility that someone has a disability, and they can also help those who do not have a disability. That will create more sustainable income.
Shona, I don't know whether that answered your question, but it's a question about AT is for everybody, not for people with disability only. So let that sink in, because we still have to address the funding question. It was partially answered by Danny, ideas on how do we get funding. But because we have a session specifically for funding, I want my experts to get 2 minutes of fame each, because they've been sitting there wondering what's happening today. I thought we were going to talk. So you've had some of the ideas. Maybe it was clear, maybe it was not. But now it's time for you to give us the solutions. According to your perspective, what's the solution to the problem that you identified? And maybe we start with Sarah this time, going all the way to Pascal. If you can do it in a minute, that'd be perfect because of time.
Okay, the problem that I highlighted, the solution to this issue we are doing at Deftronics is accessibility and mostly awareness about this technology. That is my solution. Once people understand, then they can fully embrace it and it can work for persons with disabilities.
Okay. So awareness can actually unlock the funding. That's what I'm hearing. Because the guys with the money, they just need to understand what the opportunity is. And we're going to have follow-ups after this. Remember, there is, the idea is that it's going to be think tanks or working groups, because we need how of these solutions. Shona, how do you solve this?
The solutions that I am pursuing, and a number of our colleagues are pursuing, are quite complex. It isn't just one answer. because it's about strengthening the local ecosystems and doing that together with donors and government and the private sector, so that we can start shifting investment into the economic long-term sustainability of local production and away from imported products. So rather, if people want to donate products or need to donate products, source locally if possible first, or at least invest part of the donations into local production and slowly scale that up as the local production gains capacity to meet the demand. But bringing in product and undermining local production means that the donors will constantly always be dependent on importing product into a country and never satisfied with the exact outcome because of a lack of investment inside the country. Hope that answers it.
A complex answer to a complex problem. I love that. Coleman.
Thank you, Brad. So I would package it it would be into two parts, my solution. And to start that solution, I would like to say this. Assistive technology and assistive devices are products, just like any other product. And it's about time we start treating them that way. We all buy things. And as we all buy things, I think this might relate in terms of how we approach this. So I would say solution number one, we need great products. You know, when we speak, whether it's imported or not, or local, we need great products. And how do we get great local products? We need strengthened local manufacturing. We need to be able to compete with the inappropriate devices that are being imported, or even the appropriate ones that are being imported. But then how can the local manufacturers compete when they have inferior manufacturing capabilities? You know? So number one is great products. The market, before the capacity to pay everyone else a great product first. So we need to strengthen local manufacturing capacity. Great industries, competitive products that can compete with imported products, so that it's not a matter of it's a humanitarian product, it's going to help someone. It's a great product, great packaging, as Seema said, and it's great functionality. Those are number one. Number two, we need to build a strong business and investment case. And for that, we need comprehensive access to local data. We know that we have 1% of a population in Tanzania that have a disability. The question is, how many of those need assistive devices? Which assistive devices do they need? How many of them have the capacity to pay? How many of them have access to family members or circle friends who have the capacity to pay? And how many of them do not have the capacity to pay at all? And now, for those who are able to pay, is it a feasible enough market for someone to come to invest into that, for someone to come and innovate in that market? If we have this tool, we can be able, because right now the AT is quite unattractive. It's a lot of work. You go in and you have to do products and advocacy, etc., etc. So great products, great investment in business cases. Thank you.
Great. Pascal, how are you solving it?
Thank you. A lot of great ideas, especially from the public, that we definitely should be considering. So thank you for that. There's no silver bullet for this issue, as Shona has said, and others, and I fully agree with a lot of what has been said already. I think from my perspective, it's about how do we simplify things so that we create a more seamless market. And that's easier said than done, of course. But I do think we need to think about regional approaches if we really want to make a difference. There's way too much fragmentation. The markets are too small currently, and there's just too much complexity in import and export procedures between countries in Africa. And I think, and one of the things that we want to take forward is with this work on market entry guidance that we've just developed, and we're engaging with the Africa Union, for example, but we also want to talk to the EAC and other sub-regional economic groups, but is to really think about this more from a regional perspective, where we can get bigger scale, potentially larger investments, and thereby hopefully begin to address some of the challenges that Shona was also alluding to. And I do want to say one thing about quality, because I think it is also a challenge that this market faces. I mean, these are just products, but they're not just products, right? They have real life implications if they're not the right products and if they're not fitted appropriately, and so on and so forth. And I think right now one of the challenges that is being faced is that there's a lack of consistent understanding of what is quality, what is the right level of quality from those that are procuring products, selling products, and so forth. And again, a regional approach here might be helpful to make sure that we establish in Africa or in sub-regions of Africa a proper quality testing kind of lab, so that local solutions can be appropriately tested and assured for quality, that will then give the confidence to governments or organizations that are procuring these locally manufactured products to do so. Otherwise, they may still revert back to the European-made products or others that are done outside.
Right. It looks like Shona wants to say something, and I know we are out of time. So, Shona, 30 seconds, because I saw your eyes glowing or becoming bigger,
Yeah.
so I rejoinder to that.
So, yeah, you're absolutely right, Pascal. Standards are vital. And I think, I mean, we've set up a wheelchair standards test lab in South Africa, but the imported standards, ISO standards, EN standards, are not really relevant for Africa. And we need to start looking at how do we build and how do we recognize, document, and then build standards that are appropriate for us here on this continent and add them to the international standards so that we have a multifaceted quality management system for our products as we go forward and for our users. Thanks.
Fantastic. So, guys, we have to wrap this conversation up, but there's two more coming. But as we do that, because I know there's funders in the room, if you're a funder, I want your hand up. I can see you, so don't be shy. Especially if you're trying to understand the AT space. From what I've heard in the panel, because I was listening for solutions and also for validation, and I had things like new mechanisms to fund assistive tech innovation. I heard about support to AT manufacturers, whether that's labs, accelerators, but support that gets great products into the market. And my question to you is, do these things exist? And if they do, how do we double up our efforts to make them address these problems? So a round of applause to our very amazing panelists. So let's do this again. Still your hosts. So this is a powerful panel because everyone is looking at you like, oh, you have money. And we've just had very interesting discussion here, and money kept coming up. And we know that, if we don't invest in assistive tech, basically we want to build the industry, the market access, and all this. So I'm going to give each of you, of course, a chance to introduce yourself and tell us, the money that you have and how you invest it. And then we're going to get into the discussion. We might follow the same format, but I'll try to tweak it a little bit because I think we need more audience participation this time around. So we're going to start with you, Meraz. We've worked together a couple of years now, and NORAD invests in a lot of initiatives. You have a very strong private sector investment arm, so please tell us a little bit about that and about yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope people haven't fallen asleep. And thank you, Bernard, one of the people on the planet I admire the most. So NORAD is an agency under the Norwegian government. We provide development assistance like the late USAID. So I'm particularly responsible for our effort on incubators and accelerators in emerging markets to try to stimulate to new companies, new startups coming up, and improving access to finance to those. Not only in the area of assistive technology, but in the areas of food security, oceans, climate, general technology, internet, artificial intelligence, everything. And I think what that gentleman from Tanzania said is very true, that we consider assistive technology, just like one family of products. I mean, the same way as products for, let's say, blue economy or food security is another group. So the challenges met in entering into the market in Africa, of course, they exist for assistive technology, but they exist for all other family of products as well. It is not a unique assistive technology issue. So I think, therefore, that the solutions that exist for unlocking finance for assistive technology follow pretty much the same lines as any other product, and we have to look at that. And I would encourage everyone to look at the latest podcast that Bernard has. I don't remember the name of it, but it's quite fascinating, and it was a revelation for me to think about it that way, because one of the issues that have come up is, does the public funding, does it squeeze out the private capital? I mean, how can the private players compete against but of course, that is also an issue in other areas. Companies that work with distribution of, let's say, solar lamps or whatever, they have to compete with UN agencies that are giving. So that is only part of the marketplace. So I hope this will not encourage donors not to give donations to assistive technology. They should keep doing that, and then the players that are developing the private products, they should kind of take that into consideration as part of the market action. I will say a bit more about what we do on incubation and acceleration later, but we'll leave some time for the other panelists.
All right, thank you, Miraz. Please go ahead. And I understand you did have a few data points you want shown on the screen, so let us know whether we should bring those up. We should bring them up. Sorry? Use the mic. Feel free. It's how you like it.
No, just a little introduction about myself first. My name is Namita Datta, and I'm Global Head for Thought Leadership in Gender and Economic Inclusion for the IFC. I'm based in Washington, D.C. So IFC is together with the World Bank. So World Bank, IFC are together called the World Bank Group. And the difference between the two is the World Bank's mandate is to work with the government and lend to the government and provide technical advice to the government. The IFC works hand in hand with the World Bank as one, but our mandate is to lend to the private sector, to companies directly, to provide advice to the companies directly. So we are the largest private financial institution, sort of development bank, and we invest in companies in different ways. We provide loans, we provide equity, we provide local currency products, and one of the things
Just carry on. Your slides are up, but you can carry on.
My slides are up. So just building on what you were saying, for us, the biggest challenge is how to develop markets to work. So we sometimes come in when the World Bank has done its thing with the regulation, with setting the framework, and sometimes hand in hand with the World Bank. Our mandate is how do we make the market work in a way that we can literally exit? That if we exit from that market, the market will work on its own. And towards that end, we've got a whole range of financing products. I actually have a few slides, but if you don't mind, maybe I'll share some slides with you. Because one of the things we've been asking ourselves, and actually that's the slides I wanted to show, we've been asking ourselves, what is that role that we should play to make sure that the AT market works. The first step for us in order to do that is to, as Coleman said, I really liked what Coleman was saying, is establish the business case. So when we walk into the CEO's office or we walk into the office of a Minister of Finance, can we say that there is a legitimate economic case in addition to the humanitarian? So we want to build on that and say, is there an economic argument for you, Minister of Finance, or Miss Minister of Finance, or CEO, to invest in the AT market? And maybe I'll share with you, and so I can just want to see my own slides as I hope I don't take too much time, if you permit
like
me.
2 minutes.
2 minutes?
And then you'll come back to them. We're gonna come back. So just carry on and then.
Maybe I'll come back later then.
Okay.
In terms of, I wanted to show some data points.
Okay,
but
you could show them like for 2 minutes and then we come back to them.
Okay, now you're confusing me.
Okay. So let's come back to you.
Let's
then
come
we'll
back
give
to
you
the
time
data
for it.
point. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on.
But can I just finish the thought
Yes.
on the financing?
Yes.
So in terms of the financing products, we've been trying to structure innovative financing products for markets like this. One is what we call blended finance. What we do is we take our money, IFC money, and we combine it with donor money so that we can lend to a private company at below the market rate. It's sort of an incentive, but we are very careful to make the economic argument that this subsidy in the rate of interest will be given for only 3 years, 4 years, because we do not want to crowd out the private sector. We do not want to ruin it for another private company. So we'll come in with this blended finance product for a limited number of years. The second instrument we are using increasingly is what we call sustainability-linked loans, but also bonds. So there, what we'll do is we lend to a company and at X% interest, and then we say, okay, we'll give it to you for less, provided you give us quantitative metrics in terms of how many more people with disabilities you are going to include, either in your workforce, or if you're an electricity company, how many more people with disabilities will you reach with a particular product? So some sort of quantitative target, giving them an incentive to do this. I'll stop here. There are several other mechanisms we use.
We're going to come back
But you're
to
being very tough on me in terms of time.
I'm sorry. So we wanted to do the introduction first, and then we're going to come back to each one of you. So Ezra, you've been on the continent. You're based in Tanzania. And you have some experience as well with innovative financing. So tell us a little bit about, of course, yourself. And then, I haven't introduced the elephants yet. They might come later. So, yeah, feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Bernard. My name is Ezra Msoke. There's absolutely nothing more I can add to that. Quick fact, I'm a Ugandan who grew up in Kenya, lived and worked in Tanzania for the last 15 years. So any country in East Africa is my home. So I work for SIF, Small Enterprise Assistance Fund, which in itself is one of the oldest. It's now the fad now is an impact investor, but before it was just another fund manager. So we've been around since 1989, when we're currently managing about 21 funds around the world. So Sub-Saharan Africa, it's Tanzanian office, and I head the operations in the Sub-Saharan region. So SIF, as we are, so as I explained, we're a fund manager, so we work directly with small and medium enterprises. We invest, our ticket sizes, usually our sweet spot is between $500,000 to $1.5 million, mainly in the growth space. So it's only recently a few funds we're looking at the early stage startup phase, but it's mainly in the growth space. So, and as we provide this impact investment, we also do provide technical assistance. So we have a separate arm that does provide business development assistance that goes along with our financing. In terms of innovation, maybe I'd give an example of a specific fund in Tanzania. So currently, with most of our funds, we have different themes. So some could be agri-specific theme, women and youth, innovation. So one of the innovative funds, especially the one in Tanzania, for example, would look at women and youth, innovation, but specifically also add on that whatever capital we do provide, it should be catalytic. So you should be able to raise 3 to 5 times the amount of money we're giving you, but simply because we want whatever innovative product that we are supporting to prove commercial viability. And that goes back towards the sustainability of the specific product. There's a gentleman here earlier who asked about the revenue-based type of. I think for a business like that, you now definitely need to be working probably with the local authorities in terms of maybe the municipal or government policy. It's going to be very difficult to get an investor or a commercial entity to invest in a model like that because, this money also comes from somewhere, so it could be high net worth individuals, could be from donors, but it could also just be from institutional investors who definitely who are also reporting to someone and need to at least to show some sort of return. So it just depends. And maybe another thing which I was joking with Bernard earlier, when it comes to the innovative space, part of our lessons learned is, and I don't mean to sound harsh to the innovators, not every single idea is a good idea, right? Just because you stick very hard at one specific idea does not mean that it's going to be successful. So which is why it's very important, especially with the work of the accelerators in the region, because now they do that work, which the rest of us probably cannot do. But they do work with these innovators to actually prove the commercial viability. And at least at that specific time, either to fine-tune it or maybe, diversify and go. Because many of these platforms can be diversified to move into another sector to actually create some sort of commercial viability. So that's definitely, as part of the solutions, it has to be not only the funding, but we also do need the accelerators, and also we do need some support from the policy level. Yeah, thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ezra. So I'm actually hearing a lot of solutions coming out. I hope the guys are taking notes. So Klaus, you don't look to me like a typical venture capitalist. I think you're not.
Nope.
So
Nope.
Tell us a little bit your perspective on investing, because sometimes it's not just about the money, but we need to work with those with the money to help these companies.
Yeah, I think I'm the insect here in the round of elephants, and because, okay, when look at the weight, I'm the elephant, okay, but sorry to say it. But I really can confirm some of, most of the things that have been said before, especially what you said. It's not always the idea that counts, it's the market that is the relevant thing that you have to have in your mind when you create a product, yeah. And okay, I'm a little bit two-headed, yeah. I'm the head of a DPO in Vienna, in Austria. We have no kangaroos, by the way, yeah. And we have about half of the blind and visually impaired persons, legally blind persons, as members. We are 90 years old, and we were one of these typical DPOs having retirement homes for blind and visually impaired persons and all this stuff, yeah. And some years ago, 10 years ago, we decided to change a little bit our direction, and we sold our pension homes. And I thought, because the money that we got out of this, it's better invested in new companies, in new solutions, in assistive technologies for a person with disabilities. We don't have tickets from 500,000, but we have tickets 50,000, 80,000, 100,000, yeah. And we decided to invest in 7 or 8 companies. One of the things that I have to say, which is not good for the investor and it's not good for the market, but 90% fail. it's a risk market. If you invest money in new companies, and it's not about IT, it's about all the companies that are on the market, yeah? 90% of them fail, and most of them fail because of management problems. And most of them fail because they are not connected to the market itself, because they develop a product because they think this product is a good product. And why? Because I am producing, or I have this idea, and I have to bring this on the market. All the people have to buy this, and that's not true. We had one of our investments was from here. Yeah, it was in one of your cohorts in the incubation center. It was Brian Wender with 6 cents. And when you look at the product, how it looked 5 years ago and how it looks now, yeah, you see there's an absolute 180-degree change, yeah. Because we looked at the market, we tested it with the customers, yeah, and we looked at it. Do they really need it? Yeah, and they said yes, they need the thing, but they don't wear like you have this virtual reality glasses now on the market, looking like a big hat or whatever with 5 kilos on your head. No blind person would ever wear that, yeah. But the investors, they partly say, okay, wow, that looks cool. It's VR, yeah. It's AI. So we put 20 millions in it, yeah. And the 20 millions, yeah, in 10 years, bye-bye, yeah. They burn it, yeah, because nobody will buy these things, yeah. Trust me, yeah. And one more thing, I would like to connect also to the panel before, yeah. The last words that have been said was, we need African standards, yeah. Yeah, maybe true, yeah. But why isn't it like in other things, yeah? Well, look at the standards that are on the market, and for example, the 6 standards that are on the European market now, and transpose it to the African continent. Yeah? It doesn't mean that you have to reinvent the wheel when you want, because then we have another standard, we have other standards too here in Africa. And if you want to sell in the European market, for example, then you have to follow the rules there, and the rules are the standards, and vice versa. Yeah? See the market opportunity when you have a product developed for assistive technology here in Africa, yeah? It's poor demographic. We have a shrinking population in America, in the European Union, in Asia. The people are getting older, and this is the future market for you, yeah? Because you can address 25% of the population being older than 60 years old. And sorry to say that, when we are getting older, we are disabled. Yeah? Everything says, okay, when I'm 65, I'm a little bit hard of, I don't hear, but I'm not disabled. Yeah, that's a disability. Yeah, it's like having glasses, having mobility constraints, having cognitive problems, etc., and all these together. And when you are more than 65, the chance of being disabled is very big. Yeah, so look at the demographics, look at the market, and look at the customers. That's the thing, yeah. And if you invest, or if you go to an investor, yeah, then you have to tell them there's also a chance that you fail because the market says the conditions are changing.
All right. Wow. Okay, this is getting hotter and the time is shrinking. So this is what I want to do, because I think, how much time do we have now? 10 minutes? 7 minutes for this session. So we need some participation. We need some reactions to all the awesome things that you guys have said, because you've all sort of given solutions or ideas that could give solutions. So I'm going to give one opportunity to the audience. If there is a question or something you want to piggyback on what they said before we kind of move and give the panelists an opportunity to wrap up and maybe give the final presentation. So I've had solutions around blended financing. Is this one of the bullets that could unlock financing for this sector if it's not the silver one? You know, we've heard about, you know, funds and funds of funds or people who manage funds. So any questions from the audience on, or do we crack on? I think we move on. So there's a question? Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't see you there. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I've actually got a challenge rather than a question. It's around the concept of market creation and incubation and acceleration. And I would really, sorry, I should introduce myself. I work for Acumen. We're an impact investor. We've been around for about 23 years. We do early stage equity, and we also do debt and innovative finance. And it's the challenge around incubation and acceleration. There are a lot of accelerators and incubators, maybe not so many in the assistive tech space. But I think one of the challenges is around patient capital, is really being patient with early stage companies and really supporting their growth and providing the right type of TA that is specific and needs focus. I mean, I don't know, I'd be really interested to hear from others in the panel, because what we're seeing, a lot of the innovators and accelerators tend to be quite standardized in terms of the approach they provide. It's not bespoke, it's not very patient. The type of capital that's out there is normally for 3 to 5 years. It's quite short term. It really isn't supporting those businesses to grow and scale. So, and I think this is not specifically around the AT space. I personally work more in the climate space, around energy and ag, but I see this in the AT space as well. And I think on the question of product market fit is something that is being brought up, and I think that is really key, and that works across what you're describing. And I think the other thing is there's maybe an over-focus on technology, and we also need to look at business model innovation. And look at, I think one of the earlier speakers was talking about affordability and kind of pay-as-you-go business models. There's lots of things that we can look at in terms of innovation. It's not just tech and innovation.
All right, so that's a good challenge, patient capital. So let's come back. I think we have 5 minutes to wrap up. And Demeter, I think, I'm sorry, the slides, we might not have time for them. But please do mention some of those data, interesting insights that you have. So as we close this, guys, from what I'm hearing, the solutions are already here. I think I've heard what the solutions are. When you think about capital for assistive technology in Africa, what does that look like? How might we start building that foundation and betting not just on the humanitarian, but on the market side as well? Because for this dance to work, it has to be both. I think that's been brought out. So Meras, and then we're going to come this way. So maybe a minute each. Can I borrow a minute each? We got a minute each, guys. So let's go.
Thanks. Yeah, a lot of very smart things have been said. I completely agree with the CF that we need incubators and accelerators. So last year, NORAD sponsored a big program where we financed 10 incubators and accelerators in Africa, and also established 2 first loss facilities, one with Equity Bank and one with AGF, to provide loan and working capital to early stage companies. Are there a lot of entrepreneurs here or people running companies in this
Startups
space?
in the house, if you're running a startup.
Yeah, exactly. So it is clear everybody will not be a winner. And the whole point with an incubator is that it's funneling, it's taking the best ideas. I just came from a board meeting at Antler, a reporting meeting. They told me that they get 800 presentations. Out of those 800, they pick 5 that get to pitch to the investment committee. Out of those, 2 get chosen by the investment committee, and the success rate is approximately 50%. So, I mean, it's basically the same chance as winning, let's say, medal in Olympiad or something. It doesn't mean you shouldn't compete, but you have to know that's what you're doing. It also means that we have tried to introduce some incentives to the incubators and accelerators so that they are able to mobilize capital, both pure commercial capital, but also impact capital. I mean, the total capital that the venture capital industry is having is approximately $1 trillion on a global level. Out of that, approximately 200 billion is impact investment in climate, assistive technology, oceans, and so forth. So probably in many of, let's say, these business ideas, that impact capital is more realistic in the short run if we want to achieve what the lady from Acumen was saying of having patient capital being there. But not always, because as Bernard points out in his excellent podcast, you know, and that was said here, all of us will one day be in need of assistive technology. There are 2 billion people. This is not a fringe market. Everybody who's using glasses, I mean, everybody who's getting old, which means basically everybody, is this market. So it's a huge market, and therefore it should be interesting for venture capital companies to invest. But one has to find the good products, so there the incubators have to help. But then we as donors, we also have to do what the lady from IFC was saying, create blended finance structures so that commercial banks and both impact investors and commercial investors are willing to invest and being patient so that the best ideas can come out and flourish.
Damita.
So I'm going to ditch my slides, unfortunately. Let's just have a conversation. So one thing that I wanted to say was, like, one of the things we found when we were just saying, okay, let's start with looking at the data. One thing we found is when we map all the companies in the world in this sector, there are about 2,000 of them. 1,500 or something like that, exact number, is in Europe and North America. A tiny, tiny, tiny fraction is in developing countries. And that fraction in developing countries are mainly very small companies. They are either startups or they are companies which have 2, 3, 4, 5 employees. So the question for us is, where is the bang for the buck? Like, we as a financial institution, where is there a pathway to scale? So we are thinking 2 or 3 things in terms of, because we are very serious about this. We really want to come in and help build the market for AT products. And for all the reasons that the panelists said, it of course is for people with disabilities, but it's also for aging populations. It's for people who have temporary disabilities. Frankly, it's about productivity. It's about helping people lead productive economic lives, and so it's also about economic growth. So for all of these reasons, we do want to come in. So a couple things. One is, we are asking ourselves in IFC, can we identify some of these larger companies that are today not keen to get into the developing markets? They are very happy being in Europe and North America. That's a stable market. So we are thinking, is there a way we can use blended finance and some other incentives to incentivize them to come to the developing world, help set up more local manufacturing, because I totally agree with what Coleman was saying. You need to create local markets. Can we bring them? And also, because a lot of their products will not simply, you cannot simply cut and paste that product and launch it in, let's say, the African market. You'll have to adapt it. So there is a role for blended financing there. The other piece for us is we have a very interesting initiative. It's a little bit like an accelerator incubator. It's called Tech Emerge. There, what we try and handle is not just access to finance, but access to markets. So when you talk to some of the bigger companies and you say, why are you not in this in Kenya or in Nigeria? It's such a big market. Why are you not there? They say, we don't know whether we'll be able to have enough volume of sales there. It's the affordability question. It's about, so they think that they're not sure if there's a market there. So it's really about access to markets. And one of the things we do through this initiative that we have called Tech Emerge is that we identify some of these startups, these promising startups, smaller companies, and connect them to some of our large clients, large hospitals, for example. So it's more creating the market business to business rather than for the startup to be selling directly to the consumer. So we are thinking that we can leverage some of our own clients who are pharmaceutical companies, hospitals, education companies, insurance companies that may want to buy from these smaller startups. Third thing for us, very important, I think, I can't remember, one of the panelists said, is not just money, but advice about building capacity. And so we in IFC do some very interesting things called peer learning platforms, where we'll bring a few companies together and really begin that dialogue, help them learn from each other, and then ultimately some of those companies become our investee clients. So that's a very direct way in which we'll support the company, give them advice, and help them come up to scale so that they can become part of maybe even a value chain of a larger company. So it's about building the market, not just through financing, but also giving them access to markets, giving access to capacity. Those were just a couple points I thought I'll share. Data next time.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, so I wonder whether in your 3 things, you could add another one that helps the local guys. Because Shona is looking at me like that. So let's move on. Ezra.
Okay, yeah. Mine in terms of fund managers, but this is both fund managers and investors as well. Over the past few years, we've seen different themes being introduced in our industry, and it's just the norm. For example, there was a period when it was just SMEs.
Yeah.
That was the fad. And then all of a sudden there was gender. Then every single fund adopted that.
Yeah.
Then there was youth.
Yeah.
Every single fund. Climate change.
Yeah.
Every single fund. So what is so hard to actually just adopt that part of any single fund? You actually allocate a specific portion of the fund, that any single fund, if it's out of 100%, 20% should go to 80, right? That's one of the solutions I'd like to think. But just to normalize it so that every single fund looks at it. So definitely it then forces both the innovators as well as also the fund managers to actually seek out some of those gems that are hidden somewhere. But maybe at the moment they're not seeing the actual light. Yep.
That's interesting. Thank you very much, Klaus.
Yeah, thank you. I'm the one who gets the time cut, I know, yeah, because I'm the last one, yeah. But I want to go back to the first speaker. You said, okay, you have 800 applications and then 20 of them are taken, blah, 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 and all this stuff, yeah. But, okay, application doesn't mean that it's really worth to be funded, yeah. And who decides this? And that's the next thing, yeah. We need people out of the community that decides, who are deciding what is a good solution. And is it a solution that can be used by the community, can be used by persons with disabilities, and by the target group, yeah? Most of the people deciding about the money, they don't know nothing about disability. They know it from this, from all the publicity, blah blah blah, that you see. Yeah, for example, wheelchair users that are jumping from the hills, drinking some Red Bull during this. Yeah, but they don't know about the reality. And that's one of the biggest problems, I think. Yeah? So we put a lot of money in solutions that are no solutions, and there will be no solutions in the future. Yeah? So we need to have people like you or others, yeah? Local people that know what it means to have a disability, that are connected to the TPOs, to the community, and they have the right to decide who is worth getting invested. And that's one of the things that I see is the biggest problem. And the second thing, we haven't spoken about mainstreaming. We have to mainstream the solutions that are on the market. Otherwise, they will never give you any revenue.
Wow. I feel like the mic just dropped. It just stopped on my end. Oh, he's still working. Okay, guys. Yes, so I need to shut this down, but I'm not shutting down the ideas. We've actually been listening very keenly, and we are taking notes. We've had solutions from everybody, and this conversation needs to continue. So I want to thank my panelists, and as I do that, we have one funder who did not make it to your panel, unfortunately. We pushed him to the next panel, but he has to leave. So as you guys come off stage, I'm going to give him maybe 5 minutes to say a word, to usher us into the next one. And somebody mentioned Red Bull on the panel. I think I need one right now. But I'll get some H2O for that, don't worry. Yeah, so Charles from FCDO here in Kenya, I hope you will honor and give us only 5 minutes because we have one more to go. And let's give an applause to our very good funders who have given us the secrets of unlocking the private sector and funding the private sector. So over to you.
Thank you, Bernard, and apologies for rushing the financials through the last part of that session. But good evening. Apologies, I have to dash to another conference on the other side of Westlands. So unfortunately, I had to interrupt that very interesting session. But by names, my name is Charles Wesonga Juma. I work for the UK government. I am based at the British High Commission in Nairobi. My role is I have been the country lead of the UK's Digital Access Program here in Kenya for the last about 6 years. I started in 2019, and it's been an exciting journey. Our program, just briefly, it's around catalyzing affordable, inclusive, safe, and secure digital access. And that's how that aim connects very well with the conversation you're having right here, right now. So for this afternoon or this evening, I am here on behalf of my colleague who could not make it from the London office. Her name is Tessa MacArthur, our head of disability inclusion team. She sits in the Gender and Equality Department, of course, within the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office in London office. So I have a few points that she gave me to share with you this afternoon, evening. But maybe before I share her points, just to confirm that in Kenya, we have been promoting what I just mentioned, inclusive and affordable access to digital access for everyone, with special attention to persons with disabilities and women, senior citizens, as well as the young people, especially after the protests of last year for the Kenyans. You know what happened last year. The young people protested against the finance bill and demanded that they must be involved in every conversation that goes on. So we also responded by ensuring that our programming from last year included young people. So we have been addressing barriers around last mile connectivity, illiteracy levels, digital literacy specifically, lack of access to local relevant digital content, as well as awareness creation, sensitization, and building capacity of those populations that I mentioned to you, women, persons with disabilities, senior citizens, and young people, around cyber hygiene practices. And I can just mention in terms of statistics, awareness creation, sensitization of some of the models that we have been promoting. We've reached over 11 million in Kenya, and we've actually imparted foundational digital literacy skills to now almost getting to 1 million. Foundational is basically the literacy that everybody needs to be able to operate, to access a digital service. And we've also been able to reach about 10,000 in the last financial year, over 10,000 young people with skills that can be able to earn them, income opportunities. So among these, we have, in the last few years that I've mentioned, we've reached over 13,000 persons with disability with different digital literacy skill sets. We have supported the ecosystem, and I think thanks to Enable, who are organizing this conference, we put in place an ICT accessibility standard in collaboration with GIZ. And following that, we've been promoting the adoption of the standard within government quarters, while another government agency by the name Communications Authority has been promoting the adoption of the standards within the private sector. So specifically for persons with disability in Kenya, we've been ensuring that government services, as you know, those of you in Kenya, you know Kenya government prioritize availing of government services through digital platforms. Unfortunately, those government services are not accessible. Very few of them might be accessible. Most of government platforms were not accessible. Many of them are not accessible. But I think those are some of the issues that we are trying to address with government to try and ensure that they are able to adopt inclusive design in the way they are delivering government services to the general population. So specifically to the points that my colleague was meant to pass to you this evening, here she mentioned that we recognize the affordability and access to products and services is a major barrier preventing so many people with disabilities in this kind of countries from accessing the assistive technology that they need, and we could allow them to better access education as well as employment and participate in the communities and societies on an equal basis. So we must work with national governments and private sector as well as organizational persons with disabilities to open the assistive technology markets and create national systems that support assistive technology. The UK is proud to have been a founding member of the Assistive Technology ATscale or ATscale Global Partnership for Assistive Technology. So far, as you're aware, the ATscale team is here. They have reached over 1.5 million people and over 300 organizations with assistive technology ecosystem and released several assistive technology products into the market. As UK government, we strongly believe that investing in basic assistive technology makes a lot of sense and can result in return on investment of 9 to 1. So the UK government's AT 2030 program is working closely with the Global Disability Innovation GDI Hub, which is catalyzing at least $60 million of investment of capital from private sector and multilaterals institutions through their AT Growth Fund. So the investment into these innovative assistive technologies will provide affordable access to millions more people in low and middle income countries. So that is the message this evening, and I'm privileged and grateful for the conveners of this session for giving us this opportunity to participate, and apologies for not staying to the end of it. Thanks, Bernard, for causing more delay. Asante sana. Nice evening.
All right, so thank you, Charles, for that very informative brief on what UK is doing. Guys, we still have one more to do, so we need energy to go up, right? We need energy. Okay, so what are we gonna do? So as they're preparing the next, we were gonna play a video for you that is audio described of what we just played before. But before we do that, I want us to let the blood flow a little bit. So again, if you can stand up, please be upstanding. And I'm gonna give you guys a 1-minute opportunity to date. So you come into this room, you don't know who's, maybe you've been looking at someone and you're like, I might not get a chance of talking to them before they leave. So you have 1 minute to talk to whoever you want. I'm gonna get you back. The video is gonna get you back. So yeah, your 1 minute starts now. Your date starts now. I'm told we need to lock the doors. Please don't leave. I need to invite my next panelist. So we're gonna have the last discussion. And this discussion is policy and system strengthening. And to get us off started, we're gonna have Pascal again coming up, Ben Hadman and Shona going back. and then we are gonna get started. All right, guys. So I think the newest person on that panel that we don't know yet is Ben Hartman. So he's gonna start with his introduction, tell us who he is, and the format we're gonna use again in this last panel, we're gonna bring back the elephant. So I want each one to tell me. So we've all heard what's happening, but the reality is, without proper policy, environment, and systems change, this is not gonna be possible, especially in Africa. And ATscale, all of your organizations have been working so hard. ATscale, Shona, GDI Hub, you've been working extremely hard on systems and policy, and we wanna see how that ties into the earlier conversations. So take it away, Ben, your quick intro and one elephant.
Thank you, Bernard. Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Hardman. I represent an organization called Global Disability Innovation Hub, or GDI Hub for short. We're based in the UK, but we work mostly in low-resource settings. We cover quite a range of territory. We go from academic research. We have an academic research centre in the UK, through teaching. We teach a master's course in the UK called Disability Design and Innovation. We also do lots of innovation work, which is my area, and then we do system strengthening, and we cover a lot of policy and advocacy work. So we cover a lot of bases, and we do most of that through partners. So a relatively small team. We're only 8 years old as an organization, but our mission is to drive disability innovation for a fairer world. And we can't do that without really, really good partners that we can trust and that they can trust us. And we can't do that without really, really strong systems and ecosystems, which I guess is where we're moving to in this conversation. So, yeah, really interested to get into it. Did you want an elephant in the room from me? Yeah.
Just one.
I think. So my background's design and engineering and innovation, mostly within corporate and commercial environments. So I was struck when I moved to GDI Hub by the delta between the need that was clearly there and evidenced and the demand, and I think that hasn't really changed in our opinion over the last couple of years, but we're all trying to get there. So I think that'll be great to get into some of that on this panel.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Shona, maybe another elephant now that we know who you are.
Okay. Policy is vital. We all know that. And when it's in place, we all celebrate and we think things will change. So my elephant is, how do we transition policy into practice in a way that is driven from needs up and not from the policy down? So I think that's the challenge.
And apologies that you have to hear again from me today. I think for me, it's a little bit the flip side of the previous conversation. Previously, we talked about financing, but from a sort of, the investing in companies financing and the supply side of the market. I think for me, the big elephant is financing from the demand side. And in particular, what are governments doing? Where is domestic financing coming from? And why is it not coming? And why are we not prioritizing this? Or why are they not prioritizing this? And I think, it boils down to political will. And for me, that is the biggest elephant still in the room. There are good intentions from certain line ministries who are responsible, for example, for persons with disabilities, but they tend to be the poor orphan of the ministries with zero budget and very little voice. And so how do we change that?
All right. Wow, we have our 3 elephants. Guess we are ready to go. So I'm going to come to you, Ben. So translating need, moving from just need to demand-driven, assistive technology adoption. It's kind of reflecting the earlier tension between humanitarian approach to assistive technology versus industry-based, private sector-driven, startup-driven kind of approach to assistive technology. And you say that in your experience, nothing has changed. Given that a lot of what has happened in this area, I think this momentum really started picking up in 2018 after the Global Disability Summit. To kind of say this it needs to be not business as usual. So what are some of those not business as usual things that you think we need to do to face this elephant and probably show it the way to the bush where it belongs? So, because we have to somehow translate that from needs-based to demand, and also focusing on the agency of people with disabilities, I guess. Do you see any solutions in that?
Yeah. So I guess firstly, to the point around how to convert need to demand, obviously it's a multifaceted equation that I don't have the answer to today. But I think there's many things that we can do. And I think that sometimes the problem can seem so vast, it's quite difficult to really break down and into bite-sized chunks. So I think one of the things that we do try to do is to design, identify a gap in an ecosystem or a value chain, and really create an intervention there. And I think when you can make it real, you can then bring stakeholders around the table. You can create evidence in a very concentrated way. And I feel like, I'm not a policymaker, but I'm sure there are policymakers here. They're buying into a story just like everybody else is, and they need to see evidence. They need to see a reason to come in and support the cause. And to Pascal's point, that political will comes from people. We're all people. We make emotional decisions. We sometimes make rational decisions. If we can play to that and create really good stories around the impact that is happening, because I do think it is happening, I think we have a much better chance of bringing or elevating the political will that's required.
Absolutely. So you mentioned something around evidence and research, and I know GDI Hub is very rooted in evidence and research. In your opinion, do you think the work that you've been doing around this evidence and research is having any impact on system strengthening and policy, especially in developing countries, where literally countries have, I think some countries over the last 5 years or so, have moved from not having any data or policy on AT to now having something that has kind of enabled a few things to happen. Because without a plan, without data, then that policy doesn't get implemented.
Yeah, I think so. It's difficult to measure, but we've done a series of things in this space around creating data and evidence required, to influence those decision makers. I suppose rapid assessments of assistive technology is one of our tools that we offer at country level, and that really gives a window into the system through data and evidence, and it's a language that policymakers understand. We're presenting some work later this evening, so if you would like to come along, please do, on how important it is to centralise persons with disability and organisations that represent them at the centre of this systemic change. And that's work that was led by KBTA, Kilimanjaro Blind Trust, with our support. and we worked with 200 organizations. And the idea there is to really not just enable access to AT for persons with disability, but enable them to shape and influence the ecosystem around that.
So Shona, you have been in the game for 30 years, and one of the things I keep hearing a lot from you is about advocacy and a grassroots kind of approach to this work. So in regards to the elephant that you brought into this room, how effective do you think advocacy and mobilizing at the grassroots level has been, and what do we need to do so that it doesn't remain there?
Yeah, it's a vital role. I mean, I don't think we realize how important it is. We take for granted that people have an understanding of what's possible once a policy is passed. But the fact is that understanding and knowledge is not there at a grassroots level. And many, many people with disabilities and their families have become so used to being the recipients of donations. They don't even internalize the fact that they have choices and can say no. They don't have the information to know what a good product and a bad product is. They don't understand the implications of using a bad product on their development and health or their children's progress. And so until we build capacity of knowledge and agency on a grassroots level for people to really know how to pull policy down into practice, and to give them the confidence to stand in their space of what they need based on policy, we are not going to see policy delivering what we need, and we're going to continue getting product going to the wrong people in the wrong place at the wrong time. And just an example of that would be, for example, we run a network of parents of children with disabilities across South Africa, upskilling them and teaching them to monitor their barriers they experience on a day-to-day basis based on their rights of their children. That information then gets fed back into the UN Shadow Report and come back to hold Parliament responsible for the delivery of services. Parents now can say, I don't want this, I need this, or go to the hospital and ask for what they now know they can get based on policy. And I think that's the role we need to focus on in order to shape markets from the grassroots up and not from outside in.
Wow, okay, so yeah, I think that deserves a clap. I see people clapping. So Pascal, I've seen ATscale do both evidence and storytelling. One of the first pieces was the case, the return on investment for assistive technology. You've done a very few interesting videos, including the one that we just played here. So in your opinion, like, what's more effective? What's having a better impact? Is it the fact that you can have this, it's published, it's on paper, this is what the evidence is, versus changing how people perceive or think about assistive technology? Where should we be doubling down our efforts?
So let me just start by saying, because I don't want us to leave this room thinking that it's all terrible and we've made no progress and it's just disaster, right? Because it's not great, the situation, we'd like it to be much better, but there has been some progress, and we are seeing some governments, and Kenya is, again, I think could be doing even more, but has made some efforts to include now certain products, additional products in their assistive product list, and they have increased their budget line, and Rwanda has done the same, and there are good examples across. Zimbabwe has done some significant efforts also in reducing taxes and tariffs. So I think there are good examples across the continent where we're seeing some progress in what we're trying to do. But it's nowhere near what's really, really needed. I think we have to hit it from all fronts. It's not either we do this or we do that. So a document like an investment case is good, is necessary, but in and of itself is never going to be sufficient, right? And I think something, and I couldn't agree more with what both Shona said just now, and also Ben, I think as long as politicians, be they, you know, at the ministerial or presidential level, or at the parliamentary level, or at the subnational level, as long as they don't hear voices coming from their constituents shouting for this and you know, being on the streets and saying this is our right, this is, you know, unacceptable, we need this. If we don't have a kind of an activist movement, I think that's never going to really fully change. There's going to be incremental improvements, but if we want a step change, there needs to be a massive movement. And that goes beyond so much more investment and work with organizations of persons with disabilities, so there's a better understanding and awareness, but also capacity to actually mount campaigns and really have a stronger voice, because I think if I compare it to other sectors I've been in my life, I'm new to this sector relatively, the voice of civil society in this space is not very strong compared to other areas that I've worked in. So there is a lot of room for how do we increase that voice. So I'm all for more even of our support at ATscale should be going towards really increasing that awareness and the knowledge and the demand generation starting at the community level.
Wow, amazing. Okay, so I have 10 minutes or less, and I want to, it's 5? Okay, I'm being corrected, it's 5, okay. So we've had what's happening at a global scale, at a grassroots level, and also at a kind of innovation lens about, you know, policy and system strengthening and all this. And I wonder whether there's, you know, any feedback to what's coming here, because there's something Pascal here is saying that if the people who are directly affected by this have no voice in engaging their politicians or their leaders, then the progress is going to be incremental. So if you want to see disruption, if you want to see rapid change, then these people need to be empowered to do the exact thing you're talking about. And I wonder whether it's a time, you know, to look at, for inspiration, to look at what happens in the disability rights movement, for example, in the United States in the 70s. And I'm not in any way or form advocating to endanger anybody's life or for people with disabilities to have to face some of the brutal realities that we have in Africa about demanding for your rights. But I think the reality is this voice needs to be strengthened, and maybe it's something we can all do to up our game in this advocacy and empowering those who need to speak up and hold accountable. Nobody else can hold government accountable more than the citizen. That's why people vote. So maybe there's even a conversation there about what's the political agency of people with disabilities and how can it play a role in increasing access to AT. I don't know whether anybody has ever asked that question, but I'm asking it here. In Kenya, this year we've had a new law for disability, the Disability Act of 2025. And that's a moment, because if there's no momentum behind this new law, in the first maybe couple of months, 6 months, the possibility of it fizzling down into, you know, the law is there, but no one is doing anything is real. So I think from what I hear is that we need to strengthen and be more innovative in how we are driving this agency of people with disabilities to make things happen for them. And so, yeah, Pascal wants to say something. So,
because I can sense you might be wrapping up, and so I just wanted to say one more thing that I forgot to mention, but it just adds to what you were saying, is that as we've been hearing today, and I've been saying it often, you know, this is about everyone not only persons with disabilities. And so while OPDs have a major role and need to be empowered, I think this disruptive movement that we need to see needs to go beyond organizations of persons with disabilities and persons with disabilities, because otherwise there's a risk that it's constantly going to be dismissed because it's going to be seen, okay, this is a small minority group, we can just ignore them. But if this is about everyone and other people that are mobilizing that may not be identifying as persons with disabilities, but still in need of assistive technology, I think that will have a greater impact.
Can't put it better than that. Any parting shot, Shona, as we come to Ben? We're wrapping up. I've never seen Shona out of words, so I'd be shocked.
No, but my parting words actually sum up the last 2 days. The excitement in seeing so many young innovators working in this space, informed by end users, is the route we're moving. And I just wanted to take a moment to celebrate it. Thank you.
Amazing. That deserves a clap. Ben?
Yeah, I think I'd echo that. I think we've got all the ingredients that we need to make this change that we're talking about. I think we need to work with really good data and evidence. We need to make interventions in the right ways, and we need to, like I said earlier, I feel like we need to break the problem down into things that we can tackle practically. Because otherwise, like from a technology perspective, I feel like it's like nailing a jelly to a wall. We're throwing ideas and innovation and technology, products, services into this black hole, and it's the last mile. Because there's some great innovation there. It just requires a few more people around the table with some political will. So I'm very excited.
Can't put it any better than that. A few more people around the table with a will to do the right thing. So that wraps up our final discussion of the day. I want to thank my panelists very much, especially the ones who've come twice. So let's give them a round of applause. So you can feel free to come back to the roundtable.